like, it wasn't bad at all. It wasn't bad enough to get surgery on it or anything. So I believe the last time he had gotten his spine checked on was last August, and everything was still okay. Like, it wasn't bad enough to have surgery or anything. It was good. So fast forward to about February or March of this year, I can't remember. We were here at my house and I had on my back brace, and my nephew saw me with it, so he's like, Raven, can I try that when you finish? I'm like, yeah, why not? When I finished with it, I told him to take his shirt off so that I could put the brace on him, and as I was putting the brace on him, I noticed this huge curve in his spine. That was my first time ever seeing that, because my nephew always wears hoodies, t-shirts, all of that, and you couldn't tell he had this big huge curve in his spine just by looking at him with the clothes on. So he has his back turned to me and I'm looking at him, and my entire heart, my stomach, everything just dropped, because in my brain I'm like, I know for a fact that if my back is not nearly as bad as his, but I feel pain, I can only imagine the pain that he's going through. But the thing is, he never complained of any pain. I don't even know if he knew that his back was like that. I don't know, it just hurt my feelings so bad. So immediately I call my sister, who is his mom, and I'm like, have you seen his back? It is so bad. She's like, no, last time he got it checked out, it was still okay. She's like, girl, just chill out. You know you overreact anyway. I'm like, no, this is bad. She says, okay, just take a picture and send it to me so I can see what you're talking about. I took a few pictures, and I sent it to her, and she's like, oh no, oh my gosh, like literally no one knew it was that bad. So immediately, like I think maybe the next day, she called and she made an appointment for him to go get it checked out again. His appointment comes around, they say, okay, yes, now it's time for surgery. And in like less than a month, he had the surgery, and now he's so straight. It's so crazy, because before the surgery he was actually shorter than me because his spine was all crooked and stuff like that. But now that they've straightened everything up, he's taller than me, and it's the craziest thing ever. But yeah, so that happened and everything went well. He is healing so beautifully. I am just so grateful, because I was really nervous that is his spine. Like, if they made one wrong nick, one wrong little cut, whatever, he could have been paralyzed for life. But everything went smoothly. Oh gosh, you just have no clue. He's doing great now though. I'm just proud. I don't know. So that's another thing that kept me away, because he's been over a lot and we've just been taking care of him, catering to him, because he still can't do a lot of things on his own just yet. He can't bend down. He couldn't take a shower by himself for the longest. There's just a lot that he needs help with and all of that. But yes, he's feeling a lot better. He's doing great. Thank you, Jesus. That's really all I can think of at this very moment. Other than that, I did want to read a short story today, because I just love those, as y'all know. This one is a little bit longer than the short stories that I usually read, so there's only this one. The story I want to read today is called Button Button by Richard Matheson. Before I ever found this story, I had actually seen a movie, or was it a show? I'll have to look it up, but yeah, I saw a movie or a show that was based on this story, and I really liked the movie or the show, whatever it is, so I just decided to read the story today for you. Why am I being so awkward? couch was lying by the front door, a cube-shaped carton sealed with tape, their name and address printed by hand. Mr. and Mrs. Arthur Lewis, 217 East 37th Street, New York, New York, 10016. Norma picked it up, unlocked the door, and went into the apartment. It was just getting dark. After she put the lamb chops in the broiler, she sat down to open the package. Inside the carton was a push-button unit fastened to a small wooden box. A glass dome covered the button. Norma tried to lift it off, but it was locked in place. She turned the unit over and saw a folded piece of paper scotch taped to the bottom of the box. She pulled it off. It said, "Mr. Stewart will call you at 8 p.m. Norma put the button unit beside her on the couch. She reread the typed note, smiling. A few moments later, she went back into the kitchen to make the salad. The doorbell rang at 8 o'clock. "I'll get it," Norma called from the kitchen. Arthur was in the living room reading. There was a small man in the hallway. He removed his hat as Norma opened the door. "Mrs. Lewis," he inquired politely. "Yes." "I'm Mr. Stewart." "Oh, yes." Norma repressed a smile. She was sure now it was a sales pitch. "May I come in?" asked Mr. Stewart. "I'm rather busy," Norma said. "I'll get your whatchamacallit, though." She started to turn. "Don't you want to know what it is?" Norma turned back. Mr. Stewart's tone had been offensive. "No, don't think so," she replied. "It could prove very valuable," he told her. "Monetarily?" she challenged. Mr. Stewart nodded. "Monetarily," he said. Norma frowned. She didn't like his attitude. "What are you trying to sell?" she asked. "I'm not selling anything," he answered. Arthur came out of the living room. "Something wrong?" Mr. Stewart introduced himself. "Oh, Arthur pointed towards the living room and smiled. "What is that gadget, anyway?" "It won't take long to explain," replied Mr. Stewart. "May I come in?" "If you're selling something," Arthur said. Mr. Stewart shook his head. "I'm not." Arthur looked at Norma. "Up to you," she said. He hesitated. "Well, why not?" he said. They went into the living room, and Mr. Stewart sat in Norma's chair. He reached into an inside coat pocket and withdrew a small sealed envelope. "Inside here is a key to the Bell unit dome," he said. He set the envelope on the chair's side table. "The bell is connected to our office." "What is it for?" asked Arthur. "If you push the button," Mr. Stewart told him, "somewhere in the world, someone you don't know will die, in return for which you will receive a payment of $50,000. Norma stared at the small man. He was smiling. "What are you talking about?" Arthur asked him. Mr. Stewart looked surprised. "But I've just explained," he said. "Is this a practical joke?" asked Arthur. "Not at all. The offer is completely genuine." "You aren't making sense," Arthur said. "You expect us to believe. Whom do you represent?" demanded Norma. Mr. Stewart looked embarrassed. "I'm afraid I'm not at liberty to tell you that," he said. "However, I assure you, the organization is of international scope." "I think you better leave," Arthur said, standing. Mr. Stewart rose, "Of course, and take your button unit with you." research. Arthur shrugged. Could be. Maybe some eccentric millionaire is doing it. Maybe. Wouldn't you like to know? Arthur shook his head. Why? Because it's immoral, he told her. Norma slid beneath the covers. Well, I think it's intriguing, she said. Arthur turned off the lamp and leaned over to kiss her. Good night, he said. Good night. She patted his back. Norma closed her eyes. $50,000, she thought. In the morning, as she left the apartment, Norma saw the card halves on the table. Impulsively, she dropped them into her purse. She locked the front door and joined Arthur in the elevator. While she was on her coffee break, she took the card halves from her purse and held the torn edges together. Only Mr. Stewart's name and telephone number were printed on the card. After lunch, she took the card halves from her purse again and scotch taped the edges together. Why am I doing this? She thought. Just before 5, she dialed the number. Good afternoon, said Mr. Stewart's voice. Norma almost hung up, but restrained herself. She cleared her throat. This is Mrs. Lewis, she said. Yes, Mrs. Lewis. Mr. Stewart sounded pleased. I'm curious. That's natural, Mr. Stewart said. Not that I believe a word of what you told us. Oh, it's quite authentic, Mr. Stewart answered. Well, whatever, Norma swallowed. When you said someone in the world would die, what did you mean? Exactly that, he answered. It could be anyone. All we guarantee is that you don't know them, and of course that you wouldn't have to watch them die. For $50,000, Norma said. That is correct. She made a scoffing sound. That's crazy. Nonetheless, that is the proposition, Mr. Stewart said. Would you like to return the button unit? Norma stiffened. Certainly not. She hung up angrily. The package was lying by the front door. Norma saw it as she left the elevator. Well, of all the nerve, she thought. She glared at the carton as she unlocked the door. I just won't take it in, she thought. She went inside and started dinner. Later, she went into the front hallway. Opening the door, she picked up the package and carried it into the kitchen, leaving it on the table. She sat in the living room, looking out the window. After a while, she went back into the kitchen to turn the cutlets in the broiler. She put the package in a bottom cabinet. She'd throw it out in the morning. Maybe some eccentric millionaire is playing games with people, she said. Arthur looked up from his dinner. I don't understand you. What does that mean? Let it go, he told her. Norma ate in silence. Suddenly, she put her fork down. Suppose it's a genuine offer, she said. Arthur stared at her. Suppose it's a genuine offer. Alright, suppose it is. He looked incredulous. What would you like to do? Get the button back and push it? Murder someone? Norma looked disgusted. Murder? How would you define it? If you don't even know the person, Norma said. Arthur looked astounded. Are you saying what I think you are? If it's some old Chinese peasant 10,000 miles away, some disease eyes was white. She shuddered. "All right, take it easy," she said. "Why are you getting so upset? It's only talk." After dinner, Arthur went into the living room. Before he left the table, he said, "I'd rather not discuss it anymore, if you don't mind." Norma shrugged. "Fine with me." She got up earlier than usual to make pancakes, eggs, and bacon for Arthur's breakfast. "What's the occasion?" he asked with a smile. "No occasion." Norma looked offended. "I wanted to do it, that's all." "Good," he said. "I'm glad you did." She refilled his cup. "Wanted to show you I'm not..." She shrugged. "Not what?" "Selfish." "Did I say you were?" "Well," she gestured vaguely. "Last night." Arthur didn't speak. "All that talk about the button," Norma said. "I think you, well, misunderstood me." "In what way?" His voice was guarded. "I think you felt," she gestured again, "that I was only thinking of myself." "I wasn't." "Norma, well, I wasn't when I talked about Europe, a cottage on the island." Norma, why are we getting so involved in this?" "I'm not involved at all." She drew in a shaking voice. "I'm simply trying to indicate that..." "What?" "That I'd like for us to go to Europe, like for us to have a cottage on the island, like for us to have a nicer apartment, nicer furniture, nicer clothes, a car, like for us to finally have a baby for that matter." "Norma, we will," he said. "When?" He stared at her in dismay. "Norma, when?" "Are you..." He seemed to draw back slightly. "Are you really saying..." "I'm saying that they're probably doing it for some research project," she cut him off. "That they want to know what average people would do under such a circumstance. That they're just saying that someone would die in order to study reactions, see if there'd be guilt, anxiety, whatever. You don't think they'd kill somebody, do you?" Arthur didn't answer. She saw his hands trembling. After a while, he got up and left. When he'd gone to work, Norma remained at the table, staring into her coffee. "I'm going to be late," she thought. She shrugged. What difference does it make? She should be home anyway, not working in an office. While she was stacking dishes, she turned abruptly, dried her hands, and took the package from the bottom cabinet. Opening it, she set the button unit on the table. She stared at it for a long time before taking the key from the envelope and removing the glass dome. She stared at the button. How ridiculous, she thought. All this over a meaningless button. Reaching out, she pressed it down. "For us," she thought angrily. She shuddered. Was it happening? A chill of horror swept across her. In a moment, it had passed. She made a contemptuous noise. Ridiculous, she thought, to get so worked up over nothing. She threw the button unit, dome, and key into the wastebasket and hurried to dress for work. She had just turned over the supper steak when the telephone rang. I guess this is fast forward, so she had already gone to work and all of this, and this is when she came back home from work, so she had turned over the supper steak when the telephone rang. She picked up the receiver. "Hello, Mrs. Lewis." "Yes." "This is the Lenox Hill Hospital." She felt unreal as the voice informed her of the subway accident, the shoving crowd Arthur pushed from the platform in front of a train. She was conscious of shaking her head, but couldn't stop. As she hung up, she remembered Arthur's life insurance policy for $25,000 with double indemnity for... No. She nails or screws visible. She couldn't see how it was put together. Abruptly, she began to smash it into the sink edge, pounding it harder and harder until the wood split. She pulled the side apart, cutting her finger without noticing. There were no transistors in the box, no wires, no tubes. The box was empty. She whirled